The Parachute Firework by Raina Barnaby. The parachute firework shot up, making a high-pitched whizzing noise, and then nothing. We looked around, my boyfriend, his brother, and I. Was it a dud? His dad, who sat in a chair in the driveway drinking a beer, said, "That was gay." And then a burst of confetti rained down, followed by a tiny parachute teetering back and forth till it brushed the lawn. I turned to look at his dad. What did he have to say now? He looked unfazed. I was impressed. I often felt like magical things could happen when I was with this boyfriend. Sometimes it scared me, like the time his dog clawed my leg. We were sitting in F's office, his pup on my lap, when someone knocked on the window, scaring her so bad that she clawed my leg as she leapt off. A stream of blood welled up. "Who the fuck is in my backyard?" F stormed out to see, and I went to the bathroom and dabbed at my leg. After a while, I went to see what was going on. It was around 9 p.m. F wasn't at the back door. I went outside and walked around the house and saw his car was still there. He lived in a 4-floored mansion, and it took forever to walk through each room looking for him. I had this sinking feeling that if anyone I know had a boyfriend who went to answer a strange knock and never came back, it would be me, and he would be the boyfriend, and it would happen in this house. I went into a tiny closet in the DVD room, closed the door, and stood there in the dark. I'd always liked enclosed spaces. In my dorm room in college, the first time I lived away from home, I put my mattress under my bed and sheets around the edges as walls. It comforted me to feel stuffed in there with the bed frame almost brushing my face. If you want to know why F had a DVD room, a whole room lined with shelves like a video store, and this was in 2023, it's because he was crazy. The government doesn't want us to have these, he had explained to me. That's why they aren't putting DVD players in TVs and computers anymore. They want everyone to think they're worthless and rely on streaming services. When the government thinks they're all gone and no one can find their old favorite movies on controlled streaming, I'll have copies of everything here. I liked that he was nuts. It was hot. And crazy people are magic. They can see and hear things we can't, and they know things. Sometimes I felt like F knew everything. Some of the stuff he knew wasn't true, but if you know everything, then that includes everything true and everything untrue. Maybe that was the root for why this sort of person went crazy and lost their credibility. But I believed in him. I believed he was magic, and as I wandered his house that night, I believed I might never see him again. Eventually, I stopped back in his office, and he was there at his computer. "Where were you?" I asked. "Talking to Freddie. That's his neighbor." "Was that Freddie who knocked?" "Probably. He said it wasn't, though." "Trying to mess with me," F said. "I was scared. I thought maybe you were gone forever. I thought if anybody I know had a partner that disappeared from his own house and never seen again, it would be me." He got up and hugged me. "I'm sorry. That's sweet, sort of. I'm not going to disappear." But he did disappear, all the time. F's disappearing act. The day of the parachute firework, before his brother got to his dad's, we were sitting on the front stoop. The sun shone on my legs, and I noticed that my knees were hairy. "I always forget to shave the knees," I told him. He said, "Why do you say the knees?" "I noticed the other day you called your head the head." "Why not my knees and my head?" I said the head. "When?" "The other day," he said. "I didn't know I said that." He stood up and kicked a rock. "Is your brother bringing his girlfriend?" "I hope not," he said. It was my first time meeting his brother. There's a picture of him hanging in their dad's house, and I had once commented that he was cute. Now I'll always have to worry about that, F said. He never understood how little he needed to worry about me falling for someone else. I felt bad for planting that seed, and now the vibe was weird. I could tell he hadn't forgotten that little comment. I wasn't sure if I hoped the girlfriend was coming or not. I can be timid when meeting people, and sometimes one is easier than two, but I was curious about her. I was curious about them both. I had heard things, that the brother always thought he was dying and would go to the emergency room and rack up huge bills that their mom had to help pay off, or that he would insist on getting MRIs that insurance wouldn't pay for since the doctors didn't think anything was wrong. The girl, I guess, worked as a special ed teacher and couldn't drive because of seizures, so the brother had to chauffeur her around. In F's view, his brother had become a slave to this girl, and F hated her for it. If it wasn't for her, he had commented, his brother would still be living with his dad as he had been before he met her. In my view, having a partner he lived with seemed a lot healthier than a grown man living with his alcoholic dad, but F seemed convinced the later was clearly the better option. I wanted to check out the whole dynamic to gauge if F was off. "Your tits look saggy," his dad commented as we entered the kitchen. F and I were wearing matching yellow muscle tanks. the kind where you could see F's nipple when he leaned forward, and my bra was exposed like an undershirt. We roughhoused and grabbed at each other while his dad watched TV, lifting a whiskey glass to his lips, never taking his hand off it when it rested on the table. I had my hands on F's shoulders, using them as leverage to jump up and down when his brother walked in. This guy looked like he was straight out of the 90s. He sort of had that look in the photos, but it was more prominent in person, the bowl cut, the thick round glasses, the slightly forward point to the teeth, and he was gangly, like a kid brother on a TV show. Our TV show, me and F's that we were living in. I wanted to put him in a headlock and mess up his hair. But he was shy, shifty. He didn't look at me really. He said hey to his dad and brother and went to the living room. F followed him in. It's almost 5, his dad said to me. Yeah, I guess it is. Someone get me a Whopper. We can get you a Whopper soon, I told him. I went out back and stood on the porch for a while. It was one of those summer days that make you feel nostalgic for some other summer. I felt content to be standing there for a while, but then I grew restless. I wanted to join the brothers in the living room, but I didn't feel invited or comfortable. I had grown up in a sort of boys' club. I had my brother, and all my cousins were boys. Sometimes I was included, but often I was singled out. I remembered this one time, a weekend night where my cousins were over and we were playing in the basement, and my mom came down and said it was time for me to go to bed. But why? I whined. Why didn't my brother have to go? Or my cousin who was 2 years younger? How did that make sense? My mom tugged me by the arm up the stairs and said she didn't feel comfortable with me up late with all those boys. I laid in bed crying, listening to the laughter and thuds from the basement. When I went back into the house, all 3 of them were in the kitchen, and Dad was not so politely advocating for his Whopper. F took out his keys and gave my arm a little squeeze. Okay, we'll be right back, Dad. Coming with us? He asked his brother. Nah, come on, come with us. His brother shuffled uncomfortably. I'll stay here. F was in a good mood as he backed out the driveway, drumming on his steering wheel, but that shifted when I asked a question about his brother. I can't remember what I asked even, but he had this why do you want to know about my brother attitude, as if I were asking randomly, as if he wasn't in his dad's kitchen right now and we hadn't just seen him. I backed off, but the mood was ruined. We drove mostly in silence the 6 blocks to the Burger King and back. I carried the bag in. The 2 boys went to the living room and I got out a knife to cut his dad's Whopper. He would eat the whole thing but wouldn't touch it till someone cut it in half for him. Don't get your grubby hands all over the bun, he said. I set the sandwich on a plate and cut it with the wrapper still on. This guy's family, I liked them, they were interesting, and I really didn't like very many people. Most people bored me and were fake, I felt. Or I hoped they were fake. I hoped people were more interesting behind closed doors than the version of themselves they brought out into the world. But his dad said whatever he was thinking. And F and his bro, they were both artists. I had listened to his brother's album on Spotify. I was linked to it from F's album because they had a song together. F's music I didn't care for, but mostly because it was all about his ex-girlfriend. The brother's album wasn't about a girl. I don't know what it was about really, but it was these hyper 80s, 90s keyboard tracks with electronic drumming and strange choruses. I never told F I listened to them. He was so jealous sometimes. Once when we were ordering chicken wings, I made a joke to the cashier, and he laughed, and we weren't allowed to ever go back there again. To some men, everything is about sex. But to me, almost nothing was about sex. I didn't want to have sex with his brother. I just wanted to know his family. F and I had bought some fireworks earlier in the week for when his brother came up for the 4th. It wasn't dark yet, but F wanted to light off a couple bottle rockets. We all went to the front, his dad with a beer and a lawn chair in the driveway. He lit a couple off and then pulled out a box of black snakes. Black. Snakes were these little pill-looking things that foamed out like a snake when you lit them. I got excited when I saw them at the fireworks store because they were something my brother and I used to love. F set one on the driveway and held his lighter to it, and a long black stream coiled out. He looked at me when it finished, waiting for my reaction, but I didn't have one to give. I kept looking down. I felt so sad suddenly. The familiarity of the foam puffing out of the pill, how quickly it was over. It was a simple thing, but in that moment it felt complex. It felt like all I had. No one really has that much anymore. We're all starving for connection and so afraid of losing what little we have that we scare off what could have been more, like this family. F hated his brother's girlfriend because he was losing him to her, and his brother and dad didn't like me because I was taking a piece of F from them. It didn't have to be that way, but to them, that's the way it was. I only had F for a year. It happened quick like that, and then I had nothing for a while. A lot of the time, I have nothing. His brother took a firework from the box called the Parachute. F lit it in the grass and ran back. It shot into the air, making a high-pitched whizzing noise. And then, nothing. We looked around. Was that all? His brother asked. Maybe a dud, F said. That was gay, his dad said. A burst of confetti rained down, followed by a tiny parachute teetering back and forth till it brushed the lawn.